Good evening, everybody. We welcome you all to this session on what B schools look out for a candidate, for an MBA candidate by Mr. Gautam Lakhamraju, who is the CMO and the co-director for admissions at Great Lakes Institute of Management. The things that we'll be touching upon in the session today would be the importance of academic track record and the eligibility criteria, skills and qualities required in a candidate, understand the role of work experience and extracurricular activities in the selection process, and the application and personal interview tips. This is the right time for all of you to understand the importance of these four factors that will be touched upon in the session today. Introducing the speaker, Mr. Gautam Lakhamraju, to you. Mr. Gautam is the Chief Marketing Officer and the Co-Director Admissions at Great Lakes Institute of Management. He leads the marketing and admissions activities and has played a key role in the growth of the institution into one of the leading business schools in India. Prior to Great Lakes, Mr. Gautam worked as a management consultant at ICRA Management Consulting Services. He's a MBA from MDI Gurgaon and a BTech from IICT Gandhinagar. We welcome you, sir, and thank you for having this sparing time and having this session for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ranjit. It's my pleasure to be here. And I think I'm hoping that this is an apt topic for the students right now. I think with the CAT at least done, I think now I think it's time to look forward to interviews. In fact, at Great Lakes, we are having our first cycle interview starting next week. So hopefully some of the candidates would find this useful for those interviews as well. Right. So I think, a lot of times people spend, few months preparing for CAT, ZAT, GMAT and other exams. Right. But only start preparing for the actual selection process, just a week, 2 weeks or few weeks before the interviews. Right. Now, remember that the test is just the first step. Right. Even the school is actually not assessing you in the test by itself. Right. It's conducted by a body like GMAT or, the IIMs and all. Right. The school actually looks at you deeply in the interview process. Right. The CAT and all is just a matter of filtering, from a large pool of candidates to a few who may be more suitable. Right. And who have the best chances of getting into the class. But the actual assessment would happen when you come into an interview process, right? So it's important to understand what business schools look for, so that you can prepare accordingly. You can showcase yourself in the best possible manner, and because this is simply one of the biggest investments you are ever going to make in your career, right? It's going to lay the foundation for the next maybe 30-40 years of your career. So it's important to put the best possible effort that you can, and not just best in terms of how much effort you put, but also about being smart about it, right? And you can be smart about it once you know what schools actually look for. So coming straight to the point, in terms of what would actually make you an ideal candidate, right? Again, there's no one right definition of who would be the perfect candidate, right? Because it's almost impossible that everybody is great on all fronts. But if we look at a broad set of parameters, I think that should allow us as business schools to evaluate, and accordingly you can prepare to demonstrate how you're suitable on different fronts, right? So some of the things are basic, right? You basically have the aptitude to excel in the management area, right? And one of the ways that's tested is simply the exam aptitude test, right? And if you really look at it, the tests are very simple tests. The max is like a 10th class level max. Reading is, if you have a habit of reading, it's pretty straightforward, right? In fact, I did my MBA from MDI way back in 2005 to 7, and when I was preparing, it was actually a lot of fun. It's just competing and comparing with others, so like who scores most and stuff like that. And if you have a reading habit, it actually makes it far easier. And why does CAT test these things? Because when you are in the management area, you need to look at a lot of information and process it, right? And time is always the biggest constraint. So having that capability to analyze a vast amount of information, whether it's by reading quickly, analyzing the data, making quick assumptions, right? Those are the kind of skills that would help you do well once you get into the management field. And that's something that's assessed to begin with. Similarly, communication skills, right? That's critical. If you want to be in the management space, it's important not just in terms of the language, right? English is obviously the default medium of communication in the corporate world, but also in terms of, how well you communicate in terms of convincing others, right? It's about meeting the objective of communication. One is language, the other is how do you convince others, right? How do you put your thoughts in a structured manner, right? So that's very important, right? And this again is to be built over a period of time. So it's not like you can improve your communication skills after you get the interview calls, right? You need to start doing that day in and day out over a sustained period of time. Some of you may be naturally well off in this front, but others can. This is something very easy to improve, provided you do it on a consistent basis over a period of time. So one is aptitude. Second is, let's say, your attitude, right? In terms of what are the qualities that you have, right? What is your attitude? What is your motivation? Why do you want to even do an MBA? Right? And do you have the right mindset for it, right? Are you having good, team skills, right? Leadership skills? Are you willing to listen to others, right? Are you willing to improve yourself, right? Are you willing to invest in yourself? And do you have goals, right? And are you passionate about achieving them, right? These are all things that are important, because people who have the clarity, who have the passion and the willpower to achieve those are the ones who are likely to succeed. And every business school and definitely Great Lakes would want all its alumni and students to do extremely well, right, after they do this rigorous programs. And so you have one, which is your past performance, academic track record, aptitude test, all the basic skills. That's one side, right? Second is obviously your clarity, goals, motivation, all of that, right? These are two dimensions. But let's say all of this is fine, but one final clincher is, have you actually excelled in anything in the past, right? Your track record, your initiatives, your achievements, right? And that's important because, everybody can say that I'm going to excel in the future, right? Every single person can say that, right? And many times I in the interviews, that's what happens. But what is valuable, that is completely discounted. Anything you say without being able to prove it would be completely discounted. In fact, if you talk stuff that you're not able to prove, that makes you less credible, and that makes you less impressive, right? If you claim a lot of things but are not able to back it up, it just feels like, it's all hollow and there is no substance to you, and everything maybe even fake, right? So the best way to prove that you have it in you, all the qualities, all the signs of a winner, is what you have done in the past. What have you achieved, right? It may be in any field, right? Not necessarily it's in your academic area. It's not necessary that it's in your work. It can be beyond, the academic part, extracurriculars, initiatives, voluntary work, participation in competitions, right? It can be on any fronts. The point is you demonstrate that you have the mettle, you have the drive, you have the initiative to do things and get it done well. So that's something that I think would be hugely impressive, right? Even if I get a candidate in the room who may have like the most irrelevant of backgrounds, but if I see some significant achievement, right? Maybe somebody who has performed at a national level in this classical dance, right? That would still be impressive, right? Because that says that if a person is passionate about something, they are ready to excel there, right? That means that if you give an opportunity to pursue our program, then the person is, and if he's actually interested, is likely to do well, he or she. So it's important to demonstrate what you have achieved in the past. Many times this is missed because you are, all the quantitative information in the application form, that's pretty straightforward. But schools like Great Lakes, in our PGPM, we have this statement of purpose. That's an opportunity to really talk about, what do you bring to the table, right? If there are, let's say 100 people, right? Let's say out of them, let's say 50 are engineers, right? And or plus minus, but what differentiates you from each other, right? What makes you stand out as an individual? That's a question you need to ask, right? So that's where you need to showcase, what you have done in the past, right? What is your motivation? What is that you're passionate about? That's when you tell your story, right? And at the end of the day, the best type of sales, and this, remember, this is in a way a sales process. You're telling a business school that you are a great product, right? And asking the business school to buy you, right? If you think about it like that, it becomes, just to give you more clarity. And then you have to see, what are my USPs? What are the USPs of this product, right? And how do you convince the customer? Think of all the ads that you have seen, right? How products are sold, right? So then you start thinking in a very systematic manner about what is that about you that you can showcase. What is that you can tell the business school, the interviewers, that how you can add value to the school and the rest of the class, right? So that's really something that you need to do as homework, and it starts with a lot of introspection on what you have done in the past, your successes, your failures, your weaknesses, and your strengths. And some of this by yourself, but in many cases, most of us haven't developed that capacity to introspect so deeply. I think many great thinkers have done that, right? And that's where you can read from their autobiographies and all. But one easy way to get additional inputs is to go talk to people who have known you in a professional context. Your faculty may be good judges of you, your mentors at work or outside. They are able to give you dispassionate feedback. In fact, those of you who have worked in the industry must have gotten your appraisals, right? So understand, why certain comments were there, what's the feedback, what can be better. And if you don't have it, still you can go ahead and still ask your mentors, what can I do better, right? That just helps you know yourself better. And once you know about yourself, you can represent yourself in the best possible manner. If you don't know about yourself that well, chances are, what you are going to communicate won't vibe with the recruiters or interviewers as well. And remember that it's important, this exercise, because the interview process, whether you are being selected into a business school or tomorrow when you sit for placements, is not that different, right? We look for the same qualities that even recruiters look for ultimately, right? So it's important that you can start working on this right now. So to touch upon some of these things in a slightly more detail, right? I think this almost, I'd say, half the interviews, you'll find that there will be a question on, why do you want to do an MBA? That's a very simple question, right? So the question is simple, it's easy, there is no one right answer, but what matters is, how authentic your answer is, right? And how well you can put it, and how with conviction, right? Not just, say it as a rehearsed answer, but something that can deeply showcase your conviction on why you want to do an MBA, that clarity of thought, what you thought about you'll do in the future, right? Have you spent time thinking about that, right? So your short-term, long-term career goals. Again, I mentioned your strengths, weaknesses. When have you demonstrated any team skills, any project management that you have done? You dealt with people, failures, how you dealt with it, right? All of that has to come out, right? The question is very simple, right? In fact, many of the interviews are, start with, tell me something about yourself, right? And not just, as I said, B-School interviews, but even corporate interviews. And the question is so simple. Tell me about yourself. What can be the easiest question possible, right? Somebody is asking you, tell me about yourself, right? The other person doesn't know you. So only you know the right answer. There is nobody who can say this is a wrong answer. But the question is, how can you use that opportunity to impress people? Remember, this is not just a Q&A session. It is, as I said, a sales session, right? You're looking to sell yourself as a product. So answer is, there can be two salespeople, right? One who says, okay, this is a product, right? It has 12 megapixel camera, right? It has 3 lenses. This is a battery capacity. That's one way of selling. The other is to say, this takes the most beautiful photos, right? And that's how Apple does it, right? It doesn't say specs. It tries to wow people. So think about yourself as a product and say, what is that about you that can really, wow people in this context of a business school recruitment. So spend time thinking about that, how you can really, why is that you really want to get into business school, and what steps have you taken so far towards that, right? And one simple way that we can test out, whether somebody had any interest in actual business while planning for a business school is, ask a simple question: have you read anything about business, right? What have you read, right? If the answer is, I read only Chetan Bhagat, that's not hugely impressive, right? Here you are saying you want to get into business school, spend 20 lakhs and maybe 1 or 2 years of your career, and all that you have done so far is maybe just read a few headlines on News in Shorts, right? Does it make sense? Why can't you just take that effort of maybe spending half an hour to 1 hour every day on an Economic Times or a Business Standard or Mint, right? They talk about business, right? And for free, you can just go to their website, read it whenever you're free, during commute or whatever. Like it's not too difficult to find that time. And many students actually say that they're too busy. And for that, my question is, if Elon Musk running 4 companies is a voracious reader, and so is Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, to whoever, they're all, voracious readers, Jeff Bezos, all of them, right? That's one thing that's common to almost all successful leaders, right? Especially business leaders. So if they can do it, can you not at the beginning of your career get half an hour time to do some amount of reading towards things that you're willing to spend 1 year or 2 years of your life pursuing knowledge of that, right? So you need to take baby steps to show that you are really motivated to, get into this management space, right? If you don't do anything but just give a cat and say, I just want to do an MBA because the salaries are great, that's not what would impress us, right? So start taking steps towards actually learning about business and management, right? Because you want to pursue your career in that, and it's simply logical that you start learning, right? And then you'll start appreciating the program as well, not as just for the placements, but actually for the transformation that you can have when your goals are not placements, but your goals are to be a successful business leader. Once you define your goals that way, that I want to be a successful business leader in the next 10-20 years, then you'll do certain set of things, right? Which is, you'll seek knowledge, you'll seek to build the skills. If your goal is only, I need to get good placements, then the way you think about it is different. How do I get into XYZ college? And then, I'll just wait for placements and have fun, right? Maybe that's it, right? I'll just, that's a minimum required. So that's what I'll do. So think about your long-term goals and think about pursuing this as something that is something that's going to transform yourself, right? And then a lot of things would be very clear to you, right? I already mentioned, right, the basic aptitude, that's a given, your background knowledge, right? Even if you have worked in the industry for 3 years, it's fair to ask you about, questions about your favorite topic in, let's say, your engineering or commerce or accounting, right? And most of us who are in the interview panel would understand basic aspects of many different areas, right? So I never ask question about something outside of somebody's expertise, or at least something where people should have been aware of things, right? So, there are questions like asking about Newton's laws, for example, right? And if an engineer can't answer that, what confidence will I have that this whole MBA education is going to actually add value to this candidate, right? This is something not even like what he's learned in engineering. This is something that you do it in your physics in school, right? Similarly, if somebody has done BCom or accounting and all, and can't say how do you calculate different types of depreciation, that's again is a red flag. So basic things have to be covered. Again, similarly, if those of you who have experience, you should know the context of your industry, not just the narrow work that's given to you, right? Your work may be coding on an application, right, or working on certain data, but if your knowledge is only restricted to that, then you're not suitable for higher roles, right? You may be great at that role, but when we are assessing you, we want to see whether you're suitable for a higher role, which means can you think in terms of the management, right? What this project is about, how this project is helping the clients, how is this project creating impact, right? How is this project, let's say, most projects would help the company or its clients in some way or the other, right, in business terms. And if you want to get into business school, you should be able to talk in business terms, right? So find out about your industry, find out more about your company, competitors, growth, what are its strengths, what's the outlook, all of that you should be clear, right? And then irrespective of whether you are having experience or not, as I said, you need to have certain sense of the economy, the industries, how are they doing, right? Even let's say how's the stock market outlook, or the GDP outlook, right? So because let's say if you're investing in stocks, you do so much research, but you're investing in career, you should know how's the economy doing, right? If you're going to get into business, that's something you have to look at on a daily basis, right? If not daily, let's say on a monthly basis, right? How is the overall outlook doing, and for your industry, right? So those are things that are minimum requirements, right? And then obviously the other dimension, which is skills, all that you have demonstrated in the past. We already talked about motivation and attitude, and also I mentioned about why it's important to talk about instances where you have proven those things, right? Irrespective of whether those are in an area relevant to business or in any different area, right? So because that says that you're just somebody who's a winner. So given the time frame where we are post CAT, and with interviews starting soon, I think I'll sum up what are things that you can possibly do, and these are just some of the things. There could be many more to do, and I'm sure your mentors like Ranjit would be in a great position to help you with that. But start writing down things, right? In terms of what are the talking points, what is that you bring to the table, right? What are the learnings that you had? The reason I say write it down is because that would force you to think in a structured manner. When you just say it offhand, it may not come out in a structured manner. You may not be able to revise it. You don't realize whether you said the right things or not. When you write it down, you can look at it, you can read it 5 times, improve on it, right? And you're building your own profile and story, right? So invest that time, and get feedback from others, even interviews, right? You're doing interview prep. Obviously your mentors would do it at IMS and maybe other places, but you can still do more than that. You can ask your classmates, your colleagues do those interviews for you, because nothing is better than practice, right? Whether it's for CAT test practices or for GDPI, all of this, nothing beats practice, right? And getting feedback on that, as well as feedback on terms of your work experience, your academic performance, or from anybody who's in a position able to judge you, would always be helpful for you to get that self-awareness and develop your communication skills. As I said, you can't do that in a day, not even a week. The longer you have, it's better. So practice, and start reading, right? This just make it a lifelong habit. If you are in the business of business, that's not an option that you are not aware of what's happening, and you're not aware by just looking at superficial headlines or just some YouTube videos, right? It requires certain amount of depth, right? You need to understand different perspectives on every topic. You read 2 different newspapers, they'll have very different views, right? Whether it's India or US, you have right-wing media, left-wing media, same topic, they'll have different views. In business, it's still, let's say less ideological, right? But even if you look at a stock market, like 5 different analysts would say 5 different things, right? So what is right? So it's not just information, it's about ability to distill the noise, and get insights out of that noise, right? And that would happen as you keep reading more and high quality stuff, right? Business books by top authors, autobiographies of business leaders, all that just builds so much of intellectual capability and perspectives, more importantly. So start doing that, right? Develop that habit of reading, and because then you can actually have a conversation. In the interview, it's not just one-line answers, right? If there's a question asked, what do you think is happening here? You should have enough substance to and knowledge to talk about any topic, right? Any general topic in some amount of depth and with some amount of confidence. And for that, it's important to have that awareness. So start doing that now. Again, this is something you can't like build this knowledge over just like couple of days before the interview. So at least if you start now, you'll get a little more time. So that's in short. I'll just quickly speak a bit about Great Lakes and our own interview and admission process as well. And post that, I think we can take questions. But in the meantime, feel free to, I think, type in your questions in the Q&A part, Q&A tab, and we'll take it up soon. So there are many ways to talk about Great Lakes. We have a beautiful campus. It's well established, and we have great faculty, all of that. But I think I don't want to talk about numbers as much as what really drives Great Lakes, I think, and that's really the focus on being relevant to all our stakeholders and being focused on the future. Right. And as a school, we are a relatively young school. So in a way, we are not fossilized, right? We are not stuck in our shoes, but we are somebody who are looking to innovate, to constantly look at what is that the industry needs for the future, and accordingly, add value to our stakeholders, students, and all, so that they're prepared for that. Right. And when I say we are innovative, I think there are a bunch of things. Again, as I said earlier, whatever you say, it should be backed with evidence, right? It's not okay to just make claims. So this is an example where we are one of the first schools to innovate in the product front. We have a 1-year MBA program for people with at least 2+ years of experience, the PGPM. And we were the second school. ISB was the first. In fact, our founder, Dr. Balachandran, also designed the 1-year program at ISB as a faculty from Kellogg, which was a partner school for ISB. And so we were among the first schools to do that, catering to people with experience who wanted to get back into the industry in a short amount of time, and who also brought a lot of maturity and real world experience into the classroom, right? So it was shorter time, but richer experience. We have global faculty. Every year we have faculty coming from the top business schools of the world, teaching in the class. And then we were also the youngest school to be accredited by AMBA UK, right? It's among the youngest globally, not just in India. More importantly, we were one of the pioneers of leveraging analytics in the management space. We offered an analytics specialization way back in 2013. Now every school talks about it, but 2013, hardly any did, and even companies were not. So we were like pioneers, and our analytics program now is widely sought after. People do our programs in analytics, AI, machine learning, through the platform Great Learning. And it's one of the largest programs of its kind in the country and most highly rated. Right. And so these are all things that we have done proactively, right? It's not like, trying to do what all the other schools, the older schools have been doing, but these are all original things that, we focused on. And that's what gave us the advantage in terms of, as a young school, to grow rapidly and, get to where we are today, without having the benefit of, taxpayer funding that, let's say, or the brand that some of the newer IIMs have. But this is purely built on innovative programs, quality of delivery, and outcomes for the students. Again, not just innovation in terms of program and all. We are also, as I said, a beautiful campus, which is the first LEED Platinum rated sustainable campus. And more you'll see that, even investing, people are focusing on ESG funds, environmental, social, and growth. So, these are things that matter. And as a business school, we set an example in this space as well. There are two campuses. The Chennai one is at the top. It's a beautiful 30+ acre campus on near Mahabalipuram on East Coast Road. As I said, it's one of the most beautiful campuses, right close to the Mahabalipuram beaches. So, a great location. And our Gurgaon campus is, let's say, I would say, more in a corporate city like Gurgaon, which more focused on the industry engagement, but at the same time, it's a beautiful campus as well. I just don't want to spend time on all these rankings and statistics because you'll have plenty of that on the website. Over the last 1 year, we had a significant increase in our international collaboration. So while things were locked on, people could not travel across borders. The fact is that we actually leveraged this to build bridges with the schools across the world. So we are very proud of the engagement that we could build with the Cornell University. Students would have an international immersion opportunity with Cornell, and that's like essentially an Ivy League institution. With Chicago Booth, it's many years it's ranked 1 in the world, the top business school of the world, along with maybe a Harvard and Stanford. Right, and with them we have a collaboration to offer executive programs in India together. Right, as we speak, we are doing a fairly large program for the senior leadership of L&T together. Right, we have international immersion opportunities or dual degree programs with University of Bordeaux, SKEMA, IESCG. Right, these are schools in Europe. So plenty of opportunities. I think we are just obviously a lot of things could not happen in the last 2 years, 2 seasons. But I think hopefully for the next batch onwards, this should all resume. We have some great, leaders supporting us as part of our advisory councils. Mr. Ratan Tata is chairman of the Business Advisory Council, and he has visited Great Lakes multiple times. One of the few schools he actually visited. Otherwise, he's a very private person. Right. Similarly, we had somebody like Miss Indra Novi talking to our students last year itself when we started the program, and so many leaders, very regularly interact with students. Again, on the Academic Advisory Council, these are some of the legendary management gurus. Philip Kotler, anyone who has done an MBA would know him. He's considered, let's say, the guru of marketing. His textbook is what almost every business school uses in the first marketing course. We had Ashwath Damodaran, speaking to our students again last year. He's considered the Dean of Valuations. He's working with the New York University. Professor Srinu Srinivasan teaches full course every year. He was the head of marketing department at Stanford Business School, and he's somebody who has found, developed co-joint analysis. That's an important concept in marketing research, right? So it's these kind of people who share their perspectives, and that really differentiates the experience compared to where it's only the domestic perspectives that you get. We have 2 programs, one year PGPM, and which is meant for people with about 2 to 8 years of experience, and the other is a 2-year PGDM, which is for freshers or young graduates with let's say 1 to maximum 2 years of experience. We do take CAT, ZAT, and GMAT, so those are the exams you can apply with. I think I will just briefly talk about it, but given the topic, I think we'll move to the Q&A soon. In terms of the experience, as I said, we, apart from being innovative and focused on cutting edge curriculum, uniquely we update our curriculum every single year. We review it, right? Some of the things may not be changed because they're working great, but anything that we feel is impacting management education and impacting business in future, that's something we'll immediately consider, and that's what gives us the advantage of foreseeing some of the things that impacted business at large ahead of most of the peers, right? The global faculty model, the the fact that a lot of industry engagement is there, and more importantly, I think peer learning is an important component. Our 1-year program, which is for, as I said, people with 2 to 8 years experience, has people with about let's say in a class in Chennai with let's say 350 students with an average of 3.5 years of experience. It's like over 1,000 hours of collective work experience across every single industry possible, right? And we have people who are been doctors to lawyers to somebody who's been in the media, journalists, dentists, right? So that really improves the quality of learning because you have different viewpoints. Unlike in sciences, there is no right or wrong answer. In most cases in management, you have incomplete information in most cases. In real world, you don't know what your competitors will do. You don't know how your customers will react, right? You have to guess. And that's where, having this diverse perspectives would allow you to think of all the possibilities and make the best possible decision. May not be the exact right decision, but at least having the diverse perspectives allows you to get more frequently right than wrong. Right? There's no possibility of getting 100% right, but at least most of the times, if you think through all possibilities, right, from different mindset, that should allow us to do better. Right. Apart from all the courses, we have a lot of focus on the skill-based areas, right? Which is, for example, tying everything together to solve problems. Right? You may have marketing course, finance course, and all, but in the real world, everything comes together. Any product you have to launch, you have to think of all aspects, right? Not just marketing or finance. So the integrated problem solving and case competitions would allow you to get that, problem solving perspectives in real world situations. Similarly, there's others in negotiations and leadership and so on. I already spoke about, the thought leaders and the faculty itself. Our own full-time faculty also come from various top universities globally, including our dean, Dr. Suresh Ramanathan, our founder, was from Kellogg. Our dean, current dean, Dr. Suresh, he did his PhD at NYU Stern, and he's an IIT IM alumni. And then he has taught at, as I said, Chicago Booth. So that's the kind of faculty we have, and NIF rankings, we have always been rated in the top 10 schools across IIMs, across public private schools for faculty and teaching and learning, right? So and if you look at a school, any school, forget business school, any institution, I think the key is to really learn in any institution, right? And that's where faculty matter. More than placements, more than anything else, the one thing that you are going to any education institution is to actually learn, and the people who make the difference is all faculty. And that's something, if you ask any of the Great Lakes alumni, what's the best thing about Great Lakes, they'll all say the faculty, right? And I think that's important. I talked about peer learning. We have a lot of focus on experiential learning. If you're more interested, you can find out on the website. We have a full-fledged incubation center as well, which is, we are one of the few schools selected under the Atal Innovation Mission, which is, and it's a private-public partnership in terms of the building the incubation center, and not just the government and the school, but we have also other, private companies which are partners there and which are supporting, the entrepreneurial initiatives. And we have a AI/ML lab. We have 3D printing, right? All those facilities and a mentor network. So, people who want to pursue that can use that. Yeah, I think I mentioned that. Just some of the people who have, shared their perspectives with students in the last, let's say, year or two. I mentioned about the international immersion opportunities. We have a dual degree opportunity also with the IAE Bordeaux. It's a public university in France, triple accredited, so great opportunity to have an international degree as well at a very little incremental cost. I would not really get into details on career outcomes. I think right now you want to get into a business school, but there are all kinds of possibilities that you have that, I think maybe sometime later, once you actually are close to getting in, that's the time to possibly talk about it. But again, a quick snapshot of the placements. This is again available on the website, but what I can tell you now, this is for last year. And I think we just completed our placements in Great Lakes Chennai campus as well. And this year, I think the average salary would be significantly higher. I think almost 25% higher. More than 17 lakhs is what my understanding is. We are, I think we should be publishing the placement report soon, maybe within a week. In our Gurgaon campus, we already published the report. And there our average salary went up this year from all the way from, about 12.1 lakhs to 15.6 lakhs. I think that's an increase of nearly 30% this year. This year has been absolutely fantastic in terms of placements. And I think students who joined last year with all the challenges, uncertainty, I think, they have been rewarded for, taking that risk, right? Who decided that they don't want to postpone. They want to get going with the learning. I think they have been rewarded with, an exceptionally good placement season. And we ourselves were surprised, how well the placements went. Just think about it. Our PGPM students came into the program in July. The program started in July. It's a one-year program. By October, most students were placed, right? And we've wrapped our placements by, let's say, end of November. Right, we officially closed the placement season, right? So just imagine the kind of outcomes that students are having, right? And most students, when they join in after 3 years or 4 years experience, on average have incoming salaries of, let's say, 4.5, 5 lakhs, right? To get out in a year, and in this kind of year where some of it was maybe online and some in campus. Within 4 or 5 months of joining the program, having a job which is maybe 3x of your previous salary, I think that's fantastic outcome. Just some of the recruiters, I would say, right? Again, these details you can just go find in the website. Our alumni are there. We are now a fairly large school, well established. Our alumni there across the world. So again, those are all details maybe you can explore at a later stage. But I think most relevant for now is that we already completed our cycle 1 deadline. The interviews are happening in the next couple of weeks. But you still have the cycle 2 deadline coming up on 5th Jan. And one suggestion I have is that whenever you are applying to a business school, apply at least a few days before the deadline. Don't wait till the last minute, because again, schools like Great Lakes, which look at the overall profile, for us, all the other things are also important, not just your test score, right? Our cutoffs may not be very high, but we look at, all the other things as well. So your essay is important, right? And you can't write an essay in 1 hour about statement of our purpose. Remember, I said that you need to really introspect into what you have done so far, what you bring to the table. That's when you can write an essay well. So don't wait till the last minute. Start your application process well with whatever school that you're applying to, right? So if you're clear, this is a school I want to apply to, start the process, spend time on it. You can take time to submit, but at least you'll understand, what you need to do, and then work on it in a systematic manner. So I guess with this, I'll just wrap up. And some basics about what is required, but again, I'd encourage you to just go to the website if you want more details. So we one unique thing we have is we have something called the early interview process, where if the candidates have exceptional performance in 10, 12 undergrad, if you have good work experience and everything is great, and only the interview result, the test results are pending, we would give benefit of this past performance or track record to the students, the consistency of the track record, and call them for interviews even before you submit your test scores. You can submit the rest of the application without the test scores, and we'll call you for the interview if everything is great. And once you get the test score, you can submit those scores, and that's then you'll get the interview results very quickly, just because everything else has been processed. Only the results of the test scores were to be plugged in. So you'll get the final offer very quickly once you get the test result scores and submit it, right? And that is actually quite helpful for students, especially for our PGPM 1-year program, because people who are having experience, they have notice periods of ranging from 2 to 3 months, and our program, it starts, let's say, in June, right? If you get a result by Jan, it just makes your life easier in terms of planning out your relieving processes. Some people apply for sabbaticals and then the loans and so on. So so that's just a way for us to help students in getting an early result, and this is obviously based on your past track record. Yeah. So I think first, thanks to all of you for patiently listening through. Hopefully the session has been useful, and I guess we can take up the questions now. For those who have missed, you can type in your questions in the Q&A box.
We've got quite a few questions. I'll filter out the questions, and then so you can take it up. Majorly, most of the questions were on what is the weightage given to the profile and the CAT scores, and I think you've taken it up in the session as well. Okay, so there's a question about gaps. Quite a few questions students have taken this up. Having a gap of 2 years, what impact does it create on the profile, and how does B school like? Is it taken in a negative sense, and how do we cover it up in case I have a gap? Yeah.
There was a time when people were expected to do everything in a linear order, right? 10, 12, like undergrad, go to engineering, like. But over the years, what you have seen, one is the standard. Everybody has 1 year gap before doing engineering, right? Everybody taken 1 year for IIT preparation, right? That's very common now, right? Similarly, people would have taken some gap for civil services or CA preparation. That's one thing. But also, I think especially last 2 years, many people would have deferred, their plans because of the pandemic, right? Either saying, I don't want to do something online, or, I don't know how things are, right? So that has impacted, people's profiles. But here's what, right? 1 year, I think, is generally okay. Right, as I said, most people now have during undergrad or before. 2 years, there'll be some questions, right, because that's a significant amount of time. And 3 years, definitely you have to give a good reason why you should be considered, right? And but in terms of what you have done with the time available, that's what is really going to be important, right? If you have spent 2 years doing nothing, obviously that's a big red mark, right? Why would we want to hire somebody who's just sitting at home, right? On the other hand, if you use the time to pursue things that were important in one way or the other, whether it's you pursue certain hobbies, or you were in sports, or you worked in your father's business, or whatever the reason be, if there is some credibility to it, if there is some substance to it, right, then maybe you may be given, because some people have also started their entrepreneurial ventures. It may have failed, right, and they may not have much to show in terms of, let's say, business returns and so on, but you can still talk about what you have learned, right, even if your business was a failure. So what matters is what you have done with the time, more than the amount of the gap.
Another question, sir. With a 4-year work experience, am I eligible to do a 2-year MBA?
I'm sure you'll be able to do many 2-year MBAs, right? But in Great Lakes, we have 2 programs, as I said. For experienced people, we have a 1-year MBA, right? And the reason we have that is that it makes a lot more sense. The opportunity cost for you who have been in the industry for 4 years, already earning, maybe almost a team leader, for you to be away for 2 years, that's much higher, right? So the return on investment for a 1-year program is significantly higher, right? Because in the second year, you're back in the industry, you're gaining valuable post MBA experience, you're ahead of the peer group who may be graduating 1 year later, right? In terms of the post MBA experience, and that matters. And then you may have certain personal, requirements as you get to 26, 27, and so on. You look at many other things, but more importantly, once you have experience, I think it's important to have a good peer group, right? You want to learn from each other. You don't want to sit in a classroom which is full of, let's say, 60, 70% fresh guys, right? Who have purely theoretical knowledge, have no clue about the industry. Why do you want to spend 2 years sitting in the classroom with them instead of sitting with people who come from different industries, have done different things, right? Learned the hard way on how real world, situations are and how decision making happens. So I think the peer learning is an important component. So look for programs where you have other people with experience, right? And the time frame is simply a matter of what you do with it, right? If you look at a 2-year program, it's essentially 18 months, not more than that, right? Programs start in let's say July and end by March, and then in between in the middle year you have 3 months break for summer internship. So it's not really 2 years, it's 18 months versus about 11 months in the 1-year program. It's not like you miss out on anything. It's just more intensive, less breaks, less slack, right? But the starting point is higher because of the experience levels and the peer group. You don't start with purely theoretical knowledge in the first year. And most people in the 2-year program, the first time they get into industries when they do the summer internship, right? So in a 1-year program, you won't have the summer internship, but the fact that everybody has at least 2 years experience means that 8 weeks of internship is not necessarily is going to be a game changer there, right? It's everybody has a lot more experience than that. So think about why you want to spend 2 years. Is there something that you are actually getting out of it? Right? Otherwise, 1-year programs are accepted across the world, especially in Europe. There are many flagship 1-year programs, and now US schools have also introduced. IIMs have also, followed schools like ISP and Great Lakes, and starting a lot of executive MBA programs which are 1 year in nature.
So again, a lot of students have asked a question which says, which goes on the lines of, I have a low CAT score, and what are my chances of getting into Great Lakes? I know you've taken quite a bit of this in the presentation with regards to, there are a lot of other factors. It's not only the CAT score, but I think could you just
so while at Great Lakes we don't overly emphasis on one dimension, and the test score is just one of the parameters. So we don't put like a 90, 95, 98 percentile cutoffs, right? And that's not what we are going to give you final selection based on, right? That's just one of the different set of things, right? But for getting an interview call, we have to choose a manageable cohort of students, some people who have demonstrated some potential. And so the test scores would be used for shortlisting purposes till the interview process. Post that, it's the overall performance. And we have a wide range of scores. So students would be, let's say in our Chennai campus, anywhere between 85 to 99 percentile, or GMAT from 580 to 770, right? Or in Gurgaon campus it may be slightly lower, on the lower end, let's say 75, 80 percentile onwards, right? But there is some broad range that is there. If you're less than that, chances of you getting selected would be fairly slim, right? You can obviously prepare and give alternate exams, right? A GMAT, some of the exams suit you better than the others based on your skills and capabilities. But I think that's a step that you have to take and prove that you have the basic aptitude.
This question on Great Lakes specifically, the student is asking, is the placement process same for the Gurgaon and the Chennai campus, or is it a completely different process?
So the placements are conducted separately because these are in two physical locations. But if you look at, let's say, most of the recruiters, they come and recruit from both the campuses, right? I would say majority of the recruiters come and recruit, and almost all the large recruiters come and recruit from both the campuses, right? So to that extent, there's very little difference in terms of the kind of companies that you can apply to in both the campuses, right? As you see, even the Gurgaon campus this year, as I said, average salary is 15.6 lakhs, right? Our Chennai campus would be maybe a little more than that. But as I said, for 80% of the students, it would be similar. Maybe a few companies here and there would be possibly different.
Yeah. I think more or less we've taken up. There are a lot of students. There are a lot of generic questions on. I have low academics. How do I back that up?
Yeah.
Or I don't have any extracurricular hobbies. How do I take care of it? So I think. Yeah.
So I think you can't change what's happened in the past, right? So there's nothing you can do about it. But what you can do about is what is in your control right now, right? So question is, okay, I have this red mark, right? I'm not having something great in this particular aspect, academic score or whatever, right? How do I compensate for that, right? So you can't change your past, right? But you have it fully in your capability to build your resume, build your profile, right? Going forward and doing it from now, right? So if you are very impressive in certain things, maybe you can participate in some competitions, right? Which are there, for corporate competitions. There are, if you're in acad, if you're still in undergrad, there'll be so many competitions. If you prove that you're good at those, then you can make an argument that, maybe I was not so serious in my acads, but, then I realized and I became passionate about doing these kind of things and I did it very well, right? And while that was not my focus at that time, I was focused on something else, right? Or you talk about the fact that you realize it now, and now you are very serious about things, and you started really learning about management. You read 5 great books, right? That's a simple thing that you can do, right? And if you actually then say showcase that you have the perspectives that you gained out of reading these books, that at least shows that okay, in the past you were not serious, now you're serious, and you're doing a lot of things that maybe other students who have higher scores, higher percentiles have not bothered to do, right? So look at all the things that you can do. I talked about many different dimensions, right? So if you're weak in certain dimensions, and especially that's something you can't correct from the past, focus on the other dimensions and strengthen those, right? Your strength should compensate for your weakness.
Yeah. Also, sir, students are asking about the importance, or is it beneficial to get a CFA certification done before your MBA or during your MBA, or is it necessary if I'm interested to get into the finance sector?
Yeah, I think that's a great certification. That's one of the few certifications which have actually industry value, right? But it's also quite tough and it requires significant amount of time. I had when I was doing MBA, my classmates who pursued CFA as well, right? But you should do that if you have that clarity right now that I really want to get into finance and finance only, right? If you don't have that clarity, CFA is something you can do at any point of your career, right? There's nothing like you have to do it right now or before MBA or after MBA. People most likely do these kind of certifications post MBA, right? Or you can even do parallelly once you're pursuing your MBA. So if you have the clarity, yes, go ahead. But then that would take up a lot of your time. So you may not do justice to your other preparation, right? To get into business school and so on, right? So if you don't have that 100% clarity, just go to business school first. You have your courses in finance. You learn a lot there. You learn about all the other different areas also, and then you can decide, I want to invest more in learning about finance, right? So take a call based on what your goals are. But it's obviously it's a very credible certification.
Yeah. I think we've answered most of the questions here. One question again on Great Lakes is, what are the kind of specialization courses offered at Great Lakes?
Right. Again, you'll have more details on the website about all of this, the curriculum, the specific courses and all. But quickly, the specialization are one, the usual ones. You have your finance, marketing, operations, right, strategy, and apart from all of this, as mentioned earlier, Great Lakes has been a pioneer in the leveraging technology, right, in terms of management decision making. So we have specialization in analytics, AI/ML, and even blockchain, right? So that's one unique specialization we have apart from all the regular management specializations.
We take up one last question, sir, which is relevant for everybody, and the other questions we've taken up most of them. So there's a candidate who says she has a PGPM interview on the 17th of December, and any tips, any final last minute tips for the interview preparation, and what is the best that I can do in such a short span of time to ace the interview?
I think this entire presentation was in a way a tip for the preparation. I also talked about the pitfalls. I actually gave out some of the questions, right?
Yeah.
Some of the basic questions, and I can guarantee you that some of these questions recruiters will ask you when you sit for your final placements also, right? The simple questions, right? Tell me about yourself, right? Why do you want to do an MBA, right? What books have you read, right? What do you know about what's happening in the business world or international politics, or basic stuff, right? India China trade wars, or what's happening between US China, right? These are all, if you want to understand business, you want to do an MBA, you should be curious about these things, right? So as I said, know yourself well so that you can answer, you can create a compelling pitch, right? When somebody says, tell me about yourself, don't say, I was born in here, I went to school here, I went to college here. That's just boring, right? Tell something interesting about yourself, right? So that the person appreciates you as an individual, as somebody, they want to have more conversation with, know more about you, right? Remember, it's a sales process. The onus is on you to make the buyer, in this case, the interviewers. Some of them are faculty, some of them actually come from the industry as well. Some are alumni as well. So create a compelling pitch, right? And that's a very, very important skill. Tomorrow you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to do your elevator pitch. So start writing down things, practice that, right? If that's one skill you can gain, the going to a business school itself is worthwhile if you can gain that ability to convince people.
Yeah. I think, yes, sir, we've taken up most of the questions, and yes, it was a great session and of great help to students, especially at this point of time when they are gearing up for the interview preparations for the B schools. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the students at IMS. Thank you very much, sir. It was a pleasure having you on board.
Thank you for having me, Ranjit, and hope the session was useful for the students. And since some of them mentioned that they have already applied for Great Lakes and got a call, I look forward to maybe some of them I possibly get into a panel with. But otherwise, all the best to all of you. Those who applied for Great Lakes, those who are looking at elsewhere as well. Right. Hope all your dreams are realized. You get into great schools, and hope the future bodes well for you. All the best, and take care.